This is a special presentation from 12 Corners Middle School.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you all. I am Jim Nunez, principal here at 12 Corners Middle School, joined by Dr. Marlo Washington. And we are here today to present on two different fronts. I will begin our conversation today just offering a building update, some information as to where we are as a building since the beginning of the school year, and talk about some of the great work that our students are doing and the fun that we've been having here in the meantime. And then Dr. Washington will then go ahead and speak to the specifics to the work that we as a district have been doing with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ways that we can all work together in an effort to support these efforts and to help our students and our community as a whole work collectively on this venture. So moving ahead in the conversation, I will begin by talking about where we have been with operations and maintenance since the beginning of the school year. I believe that we have been successful in all of our cleaning practices here at the school. Our school is continuously cleaned on a regular basis. Our staff is doing a great job throughout the day, making sure that all common areas are clean and disinfected. At night, our classrooms are clean and disinfected. And so we're very happy for those practices that have been taking place so far. We have been extremely successful in masking and social distancing. Our students have done a wonderful job of complying to the masking and distancing components to this. I think that plays a great deal of value to the success that we've been having with maintaining our infection rate so low and our ability to remain open. Our temporal scanner screenings in the morning upon arrival has been working extremely well. We've had them both at the Winton Road entrance and the Monroe Ave entrance. Excuse me. So we started with handheld operated temporal scanners, and we also now have the addition of an electronic temporal scanner that are both used at both entrances to ensure that our students are masked and at the appropriate temperatures upon entering the building. And our successful arrival and dismissal procedures have worked very smoothly. You know, coming into the job early on, I heard of how busy our arrivals are in the morning. And, I'd have to say that given the cohort model, it's been very nice and very smooth every morning, having just a nice steady flow of cars coming in. We know at about what times in the mornings that traffic tends to pick up. Somewhere between 7:15 and 7:35, the traffic does tend to pick up a little bit, but nothing that congests our lots or Monroe Ave or Winton, and also keeps everyone safe and sound upon doing so. So we're very proud of those efforts that have been taking place, and thank you as a community for supporting us in that. So speaking of the work that we've been doing, we are at this point at a 0.04% infection. So what that means is that this is the percentage of our students that at the highest point we have dealt with who have been out with any COVID-related illnesses. Those numbers tend to fluctuate from moment to moment. The highest we've been at are 19 total students being out, and it's gone down to anywhere between 10 and 9. So again, we're very proud of that and very appreciative of you, the community, for making sure that everyone is maintaining, again, great masking practices, social distancing, and remaining safe at home throughout the course of this. You know, without that community effort, our schools would be compromising being able to remain open. And like I said, looking at these numbers, we're very proud of the efforts that everyone is making in maintaining this opportunity for us to remain open. This is just informative. Again, starting the third marking period, all students will be in their desired learning settings for the duration of the school year. So up until this point, we have offered at different points throughout the semester and the quarters an opportunity for students to make a switch from either the remote setting to the hybrid setting or vice versa. So starting at the third marking period, we will remain fixed in where we at unless there are some extenuating circumstances that we need to address as a school and as a family. But as a whole, we will remain in the settings that we are in at this point. Student information so far, approaching the close of the second marking period. So far, we have about an 85% proficiency rate in all of our students combined, both hybrid and remote. So we're very happy about that. We're very proud of the efforts that our students are making in the classroom, given the different setting and the parameters under which they're working. We're very proud of the efforts that our teachers are making, not only connecting with our students, but also delivering the curriculum in a way that is still rich and meaningful to them. In speaking to our students continuously report that they wish they could still be in school for 5 days a week. They enjoy seeing their friends and their teachers, and that they do feel extremely safe being here given the circumstances under which we are in. So we're very happy that our students are, one, happy to be here, and two, feel safe being here with us. Just an update on the renovations that have taken place since the summer. Our library and our art rooms have been fully renovated. We are happy about those being done. Our library has a fantastic new look, new upgrade, new furniture, new color. Our circulation desk is fantastic. Our art rooms are up to date. Our new countertops, new spacing. So we're very happy with the efforts that have taken place there to renovate those two spaces. That was a long time in the making, a lot of work that went into making it happen. So we're very happy that that's been completed. Here we have some pictures of students who have been recipients of Student of the Month. We also know that not only students here in the hybrid setting, but also in the remote setting receive these awards from their teachers. And for those in the remote setting, I do take the effort to go ahead and deliver those families and students once they do get recognized for that. So we're very proud of their efforts for that. Right prior to the holiday break, we had some fun in the school with their ugly sweater days and their pajama days. So they were very happy about taking part in those activities prior to the holiday break. This here was our computer rollout for 6th and 7th graders. This here is a huge accomplishment, and we're very proud of this, that we are now fully one-to-one here at TCMS. It really does make things much easier for us with programming and delivery of instruction, not only because of the circumstances, right, because of the zooming in and our remote situations with our students, but just in our effort to be able to deliver instruction and make sure that we can assess students in a timely and an efficient manner through the use of the devices. So we're very happy that we are at this point. I know that our students are very happy, and so thank you to the community for supporting us in that venture. We're very proud of that moment taking place. Here's some community efforts that was still taking place despite the COVID restrictions we've had. Our service club has done 2 separate donations. First, we did a food drive that supported community outreach programs here, where we were able to provide food for needy families prior to the holiday break and the Thanksgiving season. And we also here, looking at this handsome young man in his coat, we were able to provide clothing to students at School 33 in the Rochester City School District. So we're very proud of our students and our family and our communities to support us in those opportunities to still engage in those community service activities and helping those in need during that time. And here, a reminder that, lunch and breakfast is still free. So please do take advantage of that opportunity here at the school. We are part of a federal program that provides lunch and breakfast free to all of our students. So please be sure to utilize that. It is highly underutilized, so please do take advantage of that. All right, so next up, I will pass it off to Dr. Marlo Washington, who will now speak to the work that we are doing with regard to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion, and through family engagement.
First of all, I want to thank Jim Nunez, and I just want to appreciate him, and thank you also, Heather, for having me to be here today. It's an honor to be with each and every one of you. And, really this work with diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly through family engagement, has been a joy. Has really, really been a joy. And I take, I don't want to say fun just for the light of it, but it has been a great honor to be working with so many people. I have come across working with quite a number of individuals. And in addition to that work, and we're mindful that also this work has some challenges. and we had to learn how to overcome those challenges. But my name is Marlo Washington, and I've been the district diversity, equity, and inclusion diversity consultant since 2018. So I'm going on my third year, and really trying to create a culturally inclusive and diversity inclusive environment, and dealing with the various different population, from our students to our workforce and our families and community, and really begin to try to figure out how do we do this. But for the sake of this conversation today, we're talking about supporting equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion through family engagement, and what all we have done up until this point. And there's been quite a number of things we have been engaged with, we have done, and really focused laser beam in those areas. And some of those areas are still a work in progress. And so one of the things that we have been doing is to really deal with an K-12 racism and anti-bias curriculum. This has been really one of the key initiatives of the superintendent, to really work at what does it mean to include an anti-racist, anti-bias curriculum. So we are currently identifying that. Now that's been a very slow and on purpose slow process, because each school building, of course, is not at K-12. So we're really working with different curriculum bases or curricular situations as it pertains to the building, and then figuring out what type of curriculum works and what doesn't work, and then begin to see how the faculty and the staff can gel with this, given the fact that many of the faculty didn't go to school in their discipline to learn about diversity, equity, inclusion. So this is all brand new work. And a lot of this work is also fearful, because a lot of folks have not done this. This is very new in the district. And I might also say this is new. Probably Brighton is one of the leading districts of the 22 districts, school districts that are within Monroe County, that is really in the forefront of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're working on what it means to deliver a K-12 anti-racism, anti-bias curriculum. The next thing we're doing is we're conducting an enhanced review of the teaching material. So this is still in the same realm of the anti-racist, anti-bias curriculum. However, we are conducting reviews of teaching materials being used at all levels to assess cultural responsiveness. So what works at the high school will not work at 12 Corner and or Council Rock. So we have to tailor this according to each of the buildings, and go according from there. So we are in the process of doing that at this point. In addition to that, we are also continuing to develop our hiring practice. And so, in fact, let me back up. I chair what is called the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. This is a committee of about 40 individuals that are comprised of the staff, the faculty, maybe one or two students, and some members of the community, that makes up the actual diversity DEI committee. This committee is broken down, because it's so large, is broken down in 3 subcommittees, they being hiring practice, family engagement, and formerly we used to call it special ed, but now we're calling it student engagement. Each of these 3 subcommittees is chaired by one of the 3 assistant superintendents. And so we have really been engaged every other month since the school year. I missed the last meeting, but engaged in the work with DEI. Now, with the hiring practice, I want to focus just for a moment with the hiring practice, because part of what it is that we're doing, we're developing and redeveloping a diversity hiring practice module. And we're intentional about diversifying the staff through an enhanced recruitment process. and retention practice. So one of the things that we are looking at is how we diversify the candidate pool, and what does that look like, and how do we diversify? How do we diversify the candidate pool, and to try to bring in faculty and staff of color into the district, and begin to do work with the district and go forward from there, because the student population in terms of the students of color, that's growing. And so we want to kind of equate and match the faculty and staff of color also at the same time with the student of color, and really to begin to do this in this fashion. And so we're very intentional in the diversification of our staff, and the faculty in that process. Now, next, we're also looking at requiring what I call refreshers. Refreshers and new training on implicit bias for staff. And so we're working with the Brighton Teacher Center of the district to create various different ongoing professional development for teachers throughout the year as best as we can. Now, one of the things that has since happened on October 9th at the last Superintendent Day was a group of people from New York University, by way of Zoom, was hired through us to come and begin that process, to really begin to talk to the staff and train the staff on implicit bias for all staff. And that also includes focusing on providing training to our staff on culturally responsive teaching practices. So this is an ongoing attempt in assuring and making sure that our teachers are really not only teaching from a culturally responsive teaching practice, but also having this conversation. This is new. This is extremely new for a lot of folks. And so this puts a lot of folks a little nervous, right? Folks are a little nervous about doing this. Like I said earlier, this is something that folks didn't go to school to do. You know, folks went to school for their particular discipline and only their discipline. But now we're asking them to do something else that for some is different. So this is also bringing some challenges. Because this is making people feel very, very uncomfortable in some way. But this is one of the reasons why Brighton is a leader in this area of diversity, equity, and inclusion within K-12 education in the county, is because Brighton is also making some steps, because Brighton understands the idea that our young people are living in the real world. They're living in the real world, and therefore they have to engage and know how to engage with the real world and what's out there. And so it doesn't start at high school, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't start at high school. It starts the moment they enter school, even at pre-K, so that it helps them to understand, you know, about human differences and human diversity, and learn to celebrate that, not as a bad thing or as an omen thing, no, but as a great thing, and learn to celebrate that in terms of culture. So the requiring these trainings with the professional development is part of the work that we want our teachers to do. One, to feel better, two, to also understand and be more culturally aware and begin to have those conversations, not just with students, but also amongst each other, and really be informed of what it is that they're doing. Next, we are shifting practice from a discipline practice to a more therapeutic, supportive approach. In the past, the district, you know, if you're in trouble, the district would say, well, you got 5 days in suspension, and that would be more of a punitive way of doing that. But the district is taking a more of a different approach, and a different approach in that we're wanting to be more therapeutic in regards to the way we handle our students. all students through restorative practice. So we are learning the rope. I'm even learning this because I'm not keen to this area. I'm not sharp in this area, and having other people to come in to train us about the idea of restorative practices from a K to 12 perspective. So that's one other aspect. Now, when we deal with the idea of family engagement, when we're looking at family engagement, we assess family engagement practices through family engagement, the subcommittee that I talked to you earlier about that I chair, right? And so one of the things that we see as part of this assessment of family engagement through the work of the subcommittee is to figure out how do we connect families and individuals, especially persons of color, and even parents who are not thoroughly engaged or involved, or not whose children are in the district because of urban suburban program, but not living in Brighton. We need them engaged. We need all of those parents and so many more to be engaged, to fully be included with full inclusion and opportunities for equitable participation. And so one of the things that through the PTSA and some of my involvement with them is not much, but it is certainly moving into that direction, is how do we communicate this whole idea of diversity, equity, inclusion? And so one of the things that has been a discussion between the PTSA, particularly the family engagement subcommittee of my committee that I chair, is through the website. And to commit adding a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion presence prominently on the district's website, because that's not there. Probably the only thing that's there is probably the blueprint plan, but we want a more of a physical presence in ways of communicating to encourage full inclusion of parents in district activities and involvement with their students, and for families to feel a sense of inclusion and coming together in equitable participation. To update the PTSA with more info on the website, we really are thinking about, okay, how do we do this through a PTSA presence? And so we're really beginning those conversations now. We're really focusing on the presence. That word presence is very, very important, because that's the connecting link that we need to link parents who are really not engaged with the district other than sending their children to school, and how we get those parents and families involved in the district activities as we go forward. So one of the things we're looking at is perhaps events like what we call, and because of COVID-19 that got in the way, it really stopped a lot or slowed down some of the work because of this, because of COVID-19. But nevertheless, we plow ahead in dealing with parents' reception. So that's one thing we are looking at in terms of creating various different parent reception. And those parent receptions is good ways to survey parents, to evaluate parents' engagement and involvement. And then we analyze those results and then figure out how we continue to engage parents through those various different types of activities. So we want to keep hosting different parent receptions and looking into that. Really also looking at our building administrators like Heather to really engage continuous conversations on how do we connect and how do we continue to enhance the connection of our families into the activities of human diversity and engaging our parents for full inclusion. So that's a really conversation that is now being had, particularly with the family engagement subcommittee of DEI, and really trying to figure out how do we do that better. And as COVID-19 is becoming an issue, hopefully that we can see this walk away soon, and particularly hopefully by the next semester or by the next school year, I should say, in the fall, is to really have the website up and functional, and a better approach in how we will engage families into the daily life stream and the fabric of the district, and engaging families with their students and their children in the full stream of activity and life at Brighton, whether you live in Brighton or outside of Brighton, but you are part of the Brighton School District. That's what we want. And so pretty much this is what we are doing right now. And what it is that I'm really focused on as these months, and hope to get all of this done by June, to be honest, and to get most of this up and functional. We're proud that we have most of this up and functional. We know we've still got some fine tunings along the path, along the way, and we're working on that at this time. I guess if there's, I'll entertain questions, comments if I can. At this point, please, I'd like to hear from you at this time.
So Dr. Washington, could you explain to the parents what these restorative practices are and how they're different from the traditional discipline practices? Yeah, so the restorative practices is a better approach in how we literally hear the concerns and the issues of our neighbor. And so instead of being punitive, what it is that we are sitting in circles. We're literally sitting what is called restorative circles. And that is a deliberate attempt to listen, to the other person and to hear from the other person, their perspective, and respond just on that perspective and nothing else. Not even, my own feeling, but to hear from your feeling because you spoke, and therefore I have to address it from that perspective and only at a particular point in time. Normally there's some type of restorative circle object that we pass around the circle, and only when that object lands in your hand physically is when you can talk, and that becomes a way that you are heard and respected and valued. And then it is up for the next person to hear what it is that you say and begin to share what exactly you said and share those concerns and push along the way. Those are a better way, I think, of listening and hearing the angst of another individual, because most times when folks are getting in trouble, students are in trouble, we're just focusing on just law and order and just that, and that's pretty much it. But we also see, and particularly with people of color, that and we saw it from statistics. Now I can't be quoted because I can't remember the number in Brighton District, but I know that there's been an enormously high amount of persons or students of color who would be in trouble and suspended. And so we wanted to now change that a bit to really begin to deal with this from a restorative practice perspective. And we're seeing positive outcomes at this point.
If I can follow up on that, to give a more practical perspective of it within the school, right? The restorative practice approach is certainly not absent of consequence, right? There are sometimes when an act or an egregious act, depending on the severity of the act given by any child, does warrant a consequence. But with that then comes the restorative measure that comes along with giving the consequence. So in the restorative continuum, it lives within 80% of that continuum resides in the building of community, the building of relationship building, and building that sense of awareness to what we believe and value is right within our community. Then the 20% of it is the part where we live within the area of repair, which unfortunately comes that concept of consequence. So when a child acts out within the school, if a consequence is necessary given the act, the consequence is given to what's appropriate However, then we begin the repair process where the restorative measures then come into play, where we then put the aggressor and the victim within the room with other members of the faculty to then be able to share one, why the act was done, and two, how that act impacted the victim, and then how can we grow from that. So there, that learning process then will take place in hopes of repairing that relationship and ultimately hope in decreasing the event that something like that may happen again. So that's our hope with it. But I think it's also, like I said, it's important to note that it's not absent of consequence. It's the hope of, as we start the school year, as we have children in our classrooms, we're building a sense of community, we're building a sense of value, so then we can respect one another within the confines of our community here at school, and then deal with the, hopefully, what would be minor incidences of actions then that would require a consequence.
So I just wanted to share, I think that sounds very interesting, and I think parents might like to have those practices demonstrated to us so that we could also, it sounds like almost like a parenting model to me for helping raise our children here at home as well. So if we're reflecting that here at home, then it wouldn't be so foreign when they were at school. And I think that would be very helpful. So I would suggest something going forward is explaining these restorative practices and how to hold them for parents in your own family when something is going on. And
right.
We all parent our children as well. And I think that would be really interesting and really helpful.
That's a great point. Thank you.
And so, Jim, there's a couple questions in the chat. Do you want to just read them and respond, or do you want me to read them to you?
Okay, I can stop sharing the screen so that I can see them, because right now I can't see them. So I'll stop.
And the other option is I can read them to you.
Yeah, if you don't mind reading them, that would be great.
Sure, I can do that. And you can go back to sharing the screen.
Okay.
So, first, Catherine Finn is mentioning she sees fewer people of color in advanced classes, extended studies, and also fewer being recognized as having ADHD and anxiety. So she would like to know what efforts are being made to actively screen children for accelerated abilities and special needs or mental health.
Yeah, so as you know, I acclimate to the position here and to the district, these are definitely practices that I'm learning that what we do. I know that many of our practices are based on data that we have concrete before us and recommendations made by our staff. I cannot speak to the practices at the high school where it relates to the advanced placement classes of such, because I'm really not familiar with those practices, so I won't speak to those. But here within TCMS, we look at recommendations from teachers, and then from there, look at holistic data, So if we have students that may not be meeting a specific benchmark or a criteria established for placement within that, then we can say, what are the other factors that the child brings, the intangibles, that then could allow that child to be successful in the classroom, absent of them not meeting a specific criteria. So we're looking at having more holistic conversations and to see how we can further develop our programming to be more equitable and inclusive to all.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, because what 12 Corners is doing is pretty much the same as the other buildings are also doing to some degree. A lot of this work now is based and built on data. And so we've slowed the process down a little bit because we really want to take a look at the aggregate data and really assess how we go about, for instance, like what Catherine shared, how do we go about referring a student from general ed into special ed, right? And so we want to look at this in terms of a slower process. Now, this process has deliberately slowed down. It's probably one of the, in fact, if I could back up, originally we called this was the Special Education Committee, and under Dina Spagnola, who's now the new director, we changed it into student engagement.
And so part of that work is really through really looking at the data, and then really figuring out from there how best to move out in terms of really looking at this from other angles and not from the previous one or previous angles that the district had done before.
With that being said, within the buildings, other practices we use are trying to, we have a process through what we call the Brighton support team. And so that Brighton support team here at 12 Corners is made up of a lot of different teachers, administrators, counselors, our school psychologists. And so it's a broad spectrum of our professionals coming together to speak to kids who have been recommended due to concerns by teachers in the classroom. And this is a process that is at the lesser of the restrictive environment. And it's probably the first steps in the process, looking to avoid going to a special ed scenario for classification. So in these conversations, we have teachers making the recommendation to talk to us about what they see in the child, what do we know about the child. And so between that information that we get from the classroom, we then expand that conversation based on what we know of the child holistically, and then try to see what measures can we take or what interventions can be put in place for this child at the tier 1 level. So in the classroom setting, that we hope could assist that child in becoming more proficient and competent before getting to a point of classification. So it's a far lesser restrictive model. So in there, we also have an opportunity for students to go into what we call our Brighton Support Center. So this is run by one of our special ed teachers, Mrs. Kerr, who then works on study skills, executive functioning skills that we think that can better support our students to be more independent within the classroom, so then to further able to assist them successfully in the classroom. So these are measures that we take before getting to a point of classification.
Hi, could I jump in for a second here?
Hi, Mrs. Vaughn, how are you?
Hi, great. Thanks for hosting this. I just wanted to comment because I was on the special ed subcommittee of the Diversity and Equity Committee last school year and the prior school year. And what we were working on before COVID shut everything down, and I don't know where we stand because I haven't gotten any updates on that. We were working on a survey that would be filled out by all, every time the support committee met, every time a student was brought to that would really look at the data related to that kid so that after and we were working on a plan, if it was going to be every 3 months or 6 months, that data would then be analyzed and see how the district was doing with that. And because I'm a parent, and because everything shut down, I don't know what happened, if that survey was ever finalized and implemented or if that got put on hold.
To that, ma'am, I would say that I would say it's been put on hold because I was never privy to a survey or an understanding of that protocol put through to what the recommendations were being made by that committee. So I would say it's probably been put on hold for that.
Maybe
it has, because also there was a transition change as well from Carolyn to Deanna's.
Yes. Maybe that's worth following up on and seeing if that.
Yeah, there are. Like I said, there was a meeting that they had last month. I unfortunately missed that meeting because I was ill. So I know, and I haven't been briefed yet by Deanna to know where they are at, but I know they're trying to pick it up and trying to add some steam to this. And we can definitely get back to you.
Sounds good.
I mean, there is so much involved in what we're talking about, and so many wonderful people just have their beautiful hands on this in a lot of ways here and there. And so and because, like you said, Sally, COVID also got us and slowed us down in a lot of ways. So we're really, really trying to work aggressively and working harder to pick some of those things back up and proceed as we go forward. Any other questions? Any comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, Dr. Washington. Thank
How are
you
you?
for your work. My name is Sarah Johnston. I am a Brighton resident. My daughter will be starting kindergarten in the fall. And I'm also part of the Parent Leadership Training Institute. And I am interested in knowing how we're measuring success. What evaluation tools, like what's showing progress, what's showing success?
That's a good question. And so a lot of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work, because we're still new at this and we're still really going, is being benchmarked from the blueprint.
Mhm.
So the Brighton Blueprint is where we're taking a lot of our cues, and it is our driving force, and it is how we're measuring ourselves and according to benchmarking. And so the blueprint is located in the website, and pretty much we're using that. So in terms of various different instruments, we don't have that yet. We're not looking into that yet because we're just still having the kind of discussions and the kinds of conversations internally to deal with this at this point. But I would say we have not really we haven't really formalized this with looking at other instruments in terms of a bigger perspective of DEI, other than just dealing with it from the point of view from the blueprint.
Okay. So it sounds like we're building a foundation and things are still a little bit fluid right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of follow-up questions. I am happy to hear that students are part of the DEI committee. I'm wondering how the community is informed of this work, of like the transparency in the committee. How does someone join or watch a meeting if it's on Zoom, or are the meeting minutes distributed somewhere?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a very good question. To join this annually, so you usually got to go through a small little slice screening process at the early part of the school year in September time, in preparation for the October meeting, when it's usually our first meeting that we open up, and usually it goes out throughout the community at that particular point in time. In terms of transparency, we are very transparent. We try to deliver everything that we try to do. We try to deliver that in different mediums and communications, in different ways. Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't. In terms of from the website, the letters to various constituents, to get this all across. Now, again, we are really working hard at trying to get ahead of this because COVID has really handicapped us so much, and getting in front of this. And so we have really been picking this back up since November to really go forward in a better way and in a better fashion. And like I shared, we try to communicate through different emails and letters from the superintendent on behalf of himself, myself, and the committee, and go from that perspective in that regard. Our thought exchange, that's another way that we also get the word out. Not a lot of people like thought exchange, but we try to go that route to really talk about some of the issues that we're doing, and garnering support or feedback from the community as a whole in that respect.
Okay, so it's possible maybe I've been left out of the loop because I'm brand new to the school.
Yes, and if you can give me your information, and I'll make sure that we plug you in, and go from there.
Great. I'm just thinking, how could we also pull in other community members that may not be aware of the committee?
Well, you raise a good point. I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with opening the committee for not members, but for others to be observers and to come and to sit, listen, and hear, and even add, because the committee in of itself is very large. Right. And the committee is really a very, very working committee. So once we meet as a whole, we really don't meet as a whole. We break up right away into those 3 subcommittees, and then they take charge and go forward. So give me a day. I mean, because I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem at all, because we want the engagement of others. We really do encourage that. And that's one thing that I want to see happen, is to bring others into the discussion. And this is not germane to just a few of us, but I would like all of us to be part of that. So I think you make a valid point, and something that I want to continue to take back and figure things out some more.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how a board meeting would run. You know, I can watch that through Zoom, broadcast through Facebook. So maybe that's something to look into.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't do that with DEI, with the committee, in terms of electronic means or anything like that. But again, I don't have a problem talking with Dan Goldman, and see, how we can facilitate that and go from there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem. And welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Dr. Washington. Thank you for your work. I've got a middle schooler and a high schooler, and I hear you wanting to engage students and their families with the district, no matter their background or location. I'm just wondering whether your programs and strategies are also working to connect Brighton students with their communities beyond our town, because I find that we can be kind of insular, isolated, keep to ourselves, or just not really be aware of what's going on around us outside of our little suburb.
We are trying definitely to engage, because we're trying to engage in a global, larger community, and definitely connect. So a lot of our students don't live in Brighton, and they live in Rochester or some other community. And so we are trying to make headway with that. Like, for instance, we have a challenge where one of the challenges that a lot of students of color do not participate in the extracurricular activities before COVID. And that was because of transportation issues, or early in the morning issues, or what have you. So we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we deal with it? And this is a very stubborn challenge, a stubborn challenge that we have before us, trying to figure out how do we connect those students and their family who live in Rochester predominantly, and figuring things out in terms of connecting through some other means. So this was one that right before COVID hit us, that we were already in the conversation, and we had to cancel it because the schools had to change and everything had to flip. But this is a challenge still with us today, that we're trying to figure out how do we deal with that particular situation and continue to engage our students, their family, with the district, and particularly for families who are not so engaged in the district. So we're working at it, trying to figure out how we can do that and be stronger at that. It's been a little stubborn at us, but we're not giving up.
One last chance for questions from anyone in the group.
Hi, Dr. Washington. I just wanted to ask, the work that you're doing is so important. How can we, as TCMS families, as Brighton families, help support what you're doing?
That's a very good question, Wendy. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I want you. I want all of you, because this work is, as you said, Wendy, you're so right. This work is really, really important. And I love what Sarah said. I think one of the things I'm going to run back with is to invite others to come and join in this work. We had some other forums that, before Jim came on board, we had what was called Be the Healing. We had those type of forums that brought in members of the community. But this was like a year and a half ago, and to figure things out. So what we're doing is what we need to do. We need to incorporate more of our families involved in this work and what we're trying to do. And so I think through the DEI committee is one way we can facilitate that, or give me time to figure out another way. And I could definitely get back with Heather or with Jim to figure out other approaches and how we can do that. If you also know of other ways of how we can do this, more brains is better than one. That would be helpful as well. So that we can get going. But one way I'm thinking about it is through the DEI committee as one example. Any other questions, comments? I'll bring them on.
Hi, this is Elaine Ellis. I have a question for you, and I'm not even sure if it's in your area, but what are we doing at large to teach all the students in the Brighton School District about diversity and inclusion? Like, my expectation would be that by the time they graduate, they understand, they have a working knowledge of this topic, and they can take it right into the workplace. Like, what are the etiquettes for working with people who have disabilities? What is this all that they need to be thinking about? And I bring that up being in the corporate world in training and development, and having had this conversation be part of my world for 20 plus years. It's just like, how do we bring the students into the workplace with a broader knowledge of these topics so that we can keep the conversation moving forward?
Well, we're doing it now. And that's a very good question. And it is in my purview, because what we're doing is, first of all, through the DEI, right? That we're working at this more, because the DEI is the district system-based process in how we're trying to deliver and bring about delivery and deliverables for the whole system. And so what we're trying to do now is to create those means, like our hiring practice is trying to figure out system-based, how do we increase and how do we really message the idea of diversity and having a diverse faculty and staff and workforce in pushing into that direction. With students, we're working with each of the school buildings, such as even with the high school, in trying to increase our diversity messaging and the actual curriculum in various different aspects and that's across each of the buildings. And so what we're working on at this particular point, and we work very closely with each of the principals. Of course, my relationship with Jim Nunes, and since he has come on board since July 1, it's just been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, how do we do this from as small as kindergarten? And I articulate this because we got some pushbacks from some folks, right? Some families who feel that this should be a work of the high school. And I said, well, no, it needs to be the work of our students from the moment they arrive in the kindergarten. Why? It's the same way as science, right? When you're dealing with the aspect of science or social studies, you learn science in elementary school in the various different levels, and then you graduate each time you go up. And that's the same way with diversity. So there are other ways of how we teach our students about diversity from as little as kindergarten and work our way up to 12th grade. And so we're working with the building principals and with their staff to really begin to incorporate this. And my hope is to really deal with it immediately. Now, we are seeing this happening literally now with French Road. So French Road is moving into what is called their second step curriculum. They are now at the end, but should be by next week, the end of the month, beginning their push in introducing anti-racism and anti-bias curriculum in their curriculum, and beginning to teach what is called second step or social tolerance in their curriculum at this point. So that's happening.
Yeah, and I would speak to it here at TCMS. We are working really hard at redesigning our curriculum to be more inclusive, to be more culturally responsive. Our teachers are doing more work at learning how to have a more challenging conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in their classrooms, being more acceptable to the conversations, recognizing the challenges that come with it, the level of discomfort, perspectives. And so they're also embedding it into the work that they're doing. A lot of the literature that our students are reading are more culturally responsive to bring this topic to a more organic and authentic manner for them, and making the connections to them more personable as they go through the years here at 12 Corners. So I really do believe that we're doing a great deal of work. Our social studies curriculum is being revamped, and our teachers are doing a really nice job of, again, looking at it through a different cultural lens, different perspective, rather than the history that we all learned when we were kids, right? So we're working very hard at making these efforts to make it more culturally responsive to our students. And also our library selections have expanded greatly to making the opportunities for reading different type of genres and literature, again, more culturally responsive to our students.
Great, thank you.
Well, I realize we have used our entire hour, and I'm not hearing any more questions in the chat. If there's any last question any of the audience members might have, otherwise.
May I just say this?
Oh, sure.
I just would like to, first of all, thank you again, Heather and Jim, for inviting me to this forum. I really appreciate you both a lot, and thank you all for having me to come. And I do want you to know I'm always available for you. Whether it be in a group format or even individually, if you just need to call me and talk on one-to-one, I can put my number down in terms of the chat before we hang up so that you can have it, and feel free to call. So I'm available. As this work is like Wendy shared, it is very important work. And it's a new work. It's a very new work for the district, and we're learning as we go. And it's not been easy at some juncture. We've had some challenges, but at the same time, we've had great success. And I'm very proud of what it is that all of us are doing in this process and going from there. So I just want you to know I'm available for you. And at any point in time, feel free. And I drop where I'm at. I'll be there. I like Starbucks. I go to Starbucks to have discussions and over Frappuccino. So that's who I am. So thank you again.
Yes, and I was just about to say thank you so much for coming to present to us. We really appreciated this opportunity to hear how the district is teaching our students to be better community members and engage more fully with everyone.
So, and I'd also like to thank everyone as well. Thank you to Heather, Wendy, and Daisy for the opportunity to meet with all of you. Thank you for those of you who were here to participate in this forum. As the new principal here, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be working here with this community and our students and moving our agenda forward and being more inclusive, but also just, assisting our students to be better community members and grow up to be great citizens of our community. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And I look forward to the next one next month on the 4th, I believe that it is.
Thank you. Take care.
This has been a special presentation from 12 Corners Middle School.